So I'm going to put another disclaimer for this video. I do talk about depression, body positivity, trauma, so if that's something that you are sensitive to, please just wait till the next video and then I will see you there. Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Anna. First of all, Happy New Year. We made it to 2019, guys. Like, I know that when the new year comes around, it's a new and old feeling because, you know, at least at this point we've all done it so many times, but I feel like 2018 was really hard. There were a lot of times in 2018 where I was just like, is this how it's gonna be for the rest of the year? Because it was just really, really hard. But we made it. I made it, you made it, we made it, and I have to say, I am really excited for 2019, for the growth that I hope to go through this year, for the new poetry that I'm going to find and share with you guys, for the growth of this channel, hopefully. I'm really excited and looking forward to all of the good things that 2019 has to offer. So, without further ado, I'm so glad you're here, and let's get into this poetry book. So, the poetry book that I have for you guys today is Wild Embers by Nikita Gill, and I'm sure a lot of you know of her. She's very popular on the internet and social media, and I read this book towards the end of last year. It's a really special book for me because of when I read it. I was going through a lot of changes and growth, and this book talks a lot about that. It was just really helpful to sort of reinforce the things that I was going through and see that I'm not the only one that deals with change in the way that I do, which is negatively. I am not a big fan of change, and I know that I speak for a lot of people when I say that change scares me. I think I had to come to a place where I understood that it scared me, but I have to get past that and still be open to change, because change, there's a lot of positivity that goes with that. I think coming out of that little mini season of growth, I'm looking forward to more growth and more change. Anyways, so back to the poetry book. There are a total of 125 poems in this book. It's a book that, it has a whole range of concepts and emotions and lessons that Nikita has brought to our attention and wants to expound upon. And so it was really interesting to see how she melded all of these concepts together. The book is divided into about 7 sections. Each section, while it's not specifically themed for some of them, they have a slight concept that they sort of revolve around. The first section talks a lot about the universe, about the cosmos, about the vastness of our world, and tells the reader just how amazing that their own existence is, which a lot of times I don't think we consider. We just sort of see ourselves sometimes, a lot of times, as unimportant, and what she's trying to say in this is that the vastness of our universe in and of itself is a miracle, which means that by extension, you being a part of it is a miracle. In terms of spirituality and religion, I would say, just by going off of what she writes, and I'm not at all labeling her or stereotyping her, it's just sort of picking up on clues, I would say she's very spiritual, it's maybe more like a new age type of spirituality, which I don't personally associate with, but I do find value in the things that she values, and I do agree that our world is so amazing, and the fact that we are here and a part of it is amazing, and I really appreciated that in a time where I was feeling really low. Section 2 talks a lot about magic and mysticism, and what I really liked about how she did section 2 was that she took those concepts of magic and mysticism and mystery, and in those concepts she intertwines the concepts of strength and heartbreak and recovery and feminism and abuse and the mentality that goes around abuse, all of those things, she intertwines and melds them into beautiful poetry. The lessons, I would say, that go along with section 2, how to find meaning and how to learn from those moments. We all go through moments of feeling low and feeling down, and for a lot of people it's not something that they have any control over. For a lot of people it's about depression, it's about anxiety. For a lot of people those feelings are inflicted on them by other people through abuse, through trauma. I think what she's trying to say is those moments, they're unavoidable, whether it is through abuse, whether it is through mental health or illness. We are all sort of destined to go through moments of hardship, but we have a choice to learn from those moments, to figure out what life is trying to teach us from those moments, and to move towards becoming better at handling our mental illness, our depression, from moving on from an abusive relationship, from strengthening ourselves to be better people. And, you know, a lot of times I think even the concept of being a better person or working to be a better person, that takes a lot of effort and a lot of mental effort as well. And for a lot of people, that's not possible. They're not in the place, either physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to even work or try to be a better person. And she addresses that as well, because she understands that there are times, segments of our life where that's not where we are. We can't even try. But she also addresses that, and she says, surviving is also progress. Surviving is also progress. So even if, and I'm sure this is a phrase that I've heard all across the internet, where even if today you just breathe, that's enough. Sometimes that's all you need to do. I really appreciate how she is very sensitive towards those things, very intuitive, very compassionate towards people who may not have the capabilities at the moment to try, and she addresses that and she says it's okay. Just surviving is progress. Section 3, I really liked Section 3. Section 3 was one of my favorite sections because it had to do with fairy tale retellings. I don't know, it was just really interesting to see her take fairy tales that I loved and highlight the specific importance of each character and change it. Basically, the whole gist of the fairy tale section was that women are capable of being heroes, whether in their own story, in the story that's being told, and I agree with that. I have no problem with men being heroes, but it is nice to see a woman be a hero, and there's nothing wrong with it, and I think that it's empowering, and in the arts it gives opportunities to women for roles, for work, especially in our day and age where we are bombarded with media that tells us to be unhappy with who we are so that we can fund cosmetics and surgeries and all of these things that tell us that will make us feel better about ourselves. And I'm not bashing those industries at all, but at the basis of it, I feel like we are always taught, conditioned to think that the way that we are is unsatisfactory and that we have to go out and find ways of making ourselves better, when who we are as we are is literally all we need. So section 4 is, I kind of consider it a filler section, even though it's important, and there are a couple poems in there that I really liked. There's not one specific theme. One poem I do want to talk about in section 4 is titled Survival. The concept in survival is something that I've often thought about, and it's in regards to what people do when they are afraid, in their desperate moments, how they act, what people are capable of in those moments, whether it's for good or evil. People do a lot of things when they are afraid. People do things that we would not think them capable of, and oftentimes when we hear that a person who we thought was different did something that we consider to be wrong, we often judge them. What Nikita is trying to say is that at any moment in time, we are all capable of the same actions that we condemn. And before we condemn those, we should consider what we would do in the same situation. And that's something I've often thought about in regards to myself. I know that there are things that I've done in my life that I did not think myself capable of, that I am ashamed of and regret. And while I do regret doing things that I don't consider to be right, it also gives me perspective in viewing other people. Because if I am capable of doing things that I don't consider to be right and I regret, then I shouldn't have such a high standard of others in regards to what they do when they're faced with certain situations. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think if more people thought like that, people would feel freer to come forward with things that they're ashamed of that they need help with. Section 5 really speaks on confidence and nonconformity, uniqueness, how we shouldn't be so quick to want to conform to the way that others do things or the status quo. We should cherish our uniqueness and keep in mind that our uniqueness is what makes us special. The Truth About Art, which is the first, I think it's the first poem in this section, speaks about art and how art is not considered special because it's beautiful necessarily, but because it's more than that. What makes art beautiful is not the perfection of art. It is the flaws, the truth, the story, the history. Everything is what makes art beautiful. And so she is saying we are exactly the same way. We are not perfect, but that is not what makes us beautiful. Perfection is not beauty. It's the merging of all of these different concepts that makes us beautiful, and couldn't agree more. What I really like about this section is that the very last poem, called Mythology, blends right into the next section, which is something that I have always been really interested in, and that is Greek mythology. And so section 6 talks about mythological Greek females, and she highlights the characteristics that make them admirable. Greek mythology is really convoluted and oftentimes very confusing, and a lot of stories get crossed and confused with other stories. A lot of times there are so many different origins surrounding different characters, and no one really knows like what is what in Greek mythology. But what Nikita does is she just focuses on the characteristics that makes these women admirable. So she talks about Helen, and Helen of Troy, the myth of beauty, and how, especially in our society, when you think of the standards of beauty, everybody wants it. Everybody thinks that it's going to make them happy. And she's basically saying, even as far back as Helen of Troy, that was a myth. And she goes on to expand on why. And then Aphrodite, who is known as the goddess of love, beauty, pleasure, procreation, talks about the body and the body confidence and the worth that we place in body confidence. And that was really interesting. And also like really important. I personally don't suffer from feeling like my body is inadequate, but I know a lot of people do, and so I feel like that specific poem would speak words to them, that if in Greek mythology the goddess of love and beauty was confident in her body that wasn't at what we now consider to be perfect, then why shouldn't you? And then Artemis, which is the goddess of the hunt, talks about uniqueness and breaking stereotypes. Athena, goddess of wisdom, she phrases that one different. She describes as a girl that you would want to fall in love with, which I think that's kind of interesting. And then Persephone, which I don't know a lot about Persephone. I found out more about Persephone reading this and then researching it a little bit. Persephone is the goddess of the underworld, spring flowers and vegetation. And a lot of times in Persephone's story, she was abducted by Hades to be the queen of the underworld. And there's a whole lot of questions surrounding that. But what she really took from Persephone's story was that there is an aspect of ambition that Persephone had. This was the way she described it. She was unhappy with her current situation, and she wanted more. And so she went and got it. She was ambitious, and she succeeded. She was the goddess of the underworld, and depending on your views on that, it's pretty cool, I guess. Next was Hera, who is wife and I think sister of Zeus. She's the goddess of marriage, women, childbirth, and family. I think everyone knows that Zeus is a bit of a jerk. He's characteristically unfaithful. That one was really important because she relates it to a woman who has to deal with a man who is unfaithful repeatedly, and how a woman at some point will believe when the man will say, oh, I'm going to change, I'm going to be different, I promise I'll work better, and then is not. Hera wanted to believe that Zeus would be better. Once she realized that no, enough is enough, I've given you enough chances, there's nothing more I can do, she ended it. She made the hard decision in ending the relationship, and it broke her heart. She didn't want to, because at the core of it she still loved this man, but you can't love someone who doesn't love you back. And so she ended it and learns how to be alone and to be happy being alone. And that's really important. Everyone is in such a rush to be in a relationship that they don't really focus on themselves and work towards being a good person in and of themselves before they enter a relationship. I think what Nikita is trying to say is that if you are in a situation where the person doesn't love you and they're being unfaithful or, God forbid, abusive, you have to be the one to say, no, I deserve better than this, and end it. It is going to break your heart. It may even break the other person's heart, but in the end it's going to be better for you and maybe for them as well. Lastly, she talks about Demeter, who is the mother of Persephone. She talks about a mother's love with Demeter and the sacrifices that mothers will make for their children, and how it is the most purest form of love, which I could not agree more with. They were all beautiful in their own way, and in the way that they address the concepts that I think are really important for women to work on and to be educated on. Section 7 is probably the longest section, and it covers a whole host of different concepts. There isn't one specific theme in section 7, but there are so many good poems. There is one that I suppose I do have a disagreement with in the way that she describes love. She says, people talk of love like it is patient and kind. Love is also dark. It is ferocious, angry, and destructive. If you do not believe me, look at how a mother wolf protects her young. I have a slight disagreement with that. I don't think that love should ever be destructive or angry. You can be angry towards the person that you love as like a way of tough love, like telling your child, no, you're not gonna go to that party because that's dangerous. But I don't think, at least in the way that she describes it, I don't agree with that. And I think the example that she gives in where the mother wolf protects her cubs, I think that would be a form of sacrificial love if I had to name it as anything. But let me know what you guys think about that. I'm not sure how to say that better, but yeah, this was a great book, a great read. I definitely recommend it to you guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.